Misery came from that massive tax and spend bill, and we're about to pile misery on top of misery. We're about to increase gas taxes at a time you can't afford it. So to my Republican colleagues, you should enthusiastically vote no. To my Democratic colleagues, apparently you haven't learned a damn thing about what you did last time. With that, I yield.
Mr. President.
Senator from Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise tonight to talk about the Inflation Reduction Act. I'm limited on time. I'll try to keep within my 5 minutes, but I wanted to start by just kind of providing a brief summary. This is legislation that will do a number of things, all of which are helpful to American families and the American economy. First of all, it will lower the cost of prescription drugs for seniors. It will, in fact, lower the cost of energy, that the prices people pay for energy. On the prescription drug front, when we talk about lowering costs, it empowers Medicare for the first time to begin to negotiate for lower prices. It also caps the out-of-pocket costs that Medicare beneficiaries pay at $2,000. In Pennsylvania, the estimate is that there are more than 73,000 Pennsylvanians that pay more than $2,000 a year for prescription drugs. Every one of those 73,000 plus Pennsylvanians and more will benefit from that capping of out-of-pocket costs. So it lowers costs for families, but it also reduces the threat of climate change and reduces the deficit at the same time. All of that while reducing emissions between now and 2030 by some 40%. And this may be the very last time that we have an opportunity to take action in a substantial way against the threat of climate change. The presiding officer has worked on this issue for years. He knows of what I speak better than anyone. This may be the last chance to take action on climate change. Thirdly, and not by way of a complete summary, it extends the Affordable Care Act subsidies. The subsidies that were provided in the American Rescue Plan, the enhanced subsidies and premium tax credits, those subsidies will be extended to 2025. Again, I'll personalize it to Pennsylvania. This directly affects at least 100,000 people. 60,000 people in our state will lose all their insurance coverage if we don't pass this bill. Another 40,000 will have their subsidies taken away. And several hundred thousand will have their premiums go up. So it affects 100,000 people directly and several hundred thousand people directly or indirectly. And then, of course, this bill creates millions and millions of jobs over the 10 years that the bill has been measured. So after we pass the Inflation Reduction Act, which will reduce inflation, that's what we're told by some 126 economists. Larry Summers and others have said the same thing. It'll fight inflation in the ways that have already been spoken about. But after we pass this bill, this strong bill for the American economy and for American families, we've got more work to do. We've got to continue our work to pass legislation to invest in home and community-based services for seniors and people with disabilities. We've got to invest in child care and institute again what we did in the American Rescue Plan when we put dollars in the pockets of American families raising children by taking the child tax credit and enhancing that child tax credit. We've got to invest in pre-kindergarten education and paid leave, paid family leave. We've got to invest in and protect the Medicaid program and extend it. We've got so much more to do, and I'll just spend my remaining minutes talking about one issue, the issue I started with on that list, the home and community-based services issue. This is an issue that people across the country have come to talk to us about. about a senior, a loved one that they want to have home care and can't get it because they're on a waiting list that is approaching 1 million people. Or a person with a disability who wants that same kind of care in the home or in the community. I met a lot of people and listened to them and listened to their stories. Two come to mind in particular. Someone who needs that care, his name is Brandon Kingsmore, and his caregiver, Lynn Widener. I visited Brandon's home with Lynn there and learned firsthand what they're up against every single day in that home. Some months later, Brandon had the chance to meet with the president in my hometown of Scranton. And one thing that he said about Lynn as a caregiver and caregivers overall, he said the following. He said, "I would not be able to have the life that I have without Lynn's help." He said, "Caregivers give us a substantial life," unquote. That's what one Pennsylvanian said about the care he receives. Every family should have that opportunity to have care in the home or in the community. And they can't get that under current law. The only option for most families is care in a nursing home or other institutions. Now, or institutional care. Now, if someone wants that care, that's great. And a lot of those nursing homes do really good work. But here's the problem. So many Americans should have the right to have care in their home, and they don't have that opportunity today. So we've got to pass legislation to do that. The Better Care, Better Jobs bill does that. Jobs for home care workers, to get that pay up. We can't be a nation that claims to be the greatest country in the world and pay home care workers just $12 an hour. That's not going to provide the care that our families need. So this bill is about jobs for home care workers, care obviously for seniors and people with disabilities, and support for family caregivers. More than 50 million Americans are providing care to a loved one. They're saving us money by doing that, saving the nation money, but they're caring for a family member out of an act of love. We've got to help them a lot more than we do. The last two more points I'll make. We can decide to go forward and just say your only option as a senior or a person with a disability is to go to a nursing home or an institutional setting. If we continue to do that, the cost of that is $90,000 per person. Or we can invest in home and community-based services and not pay $90,000 per person. We can pay just $26,000 per American for that kind of care. So it has a huge cost benefit as well as the compelling moral argument that we should provide these opportunities. So, Mr. President, this bill we're going to pass tonight or tomorrow morning or wherever we pass it is a good bill for families, lowering cost, helping seniors with prescription drugs, and really moving forward on action against climate change. After it's passed, we're going to continue to work on these other issues. I want to end with this. I want to thank members of my staff who have particularly worked so hard the last 18 months on a range of issues, but in particular the ones who worked on home and community-based services, and will continue that fight with us. Stacey Sanders, Michael Gamel McCormick, Narda Apache, Josh Kramer, and so many others who have done good work, just like so many members of the staffs of so many senators here tonight. But let's get the Inflation Reduction Act passed tonight, and let's move forward on these other issues in the months ahead. Mr. President, I would yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Senator from Indiana.
Mr. President, I yield myself 10 minutes from the bill time. Mr. President, I rise today to honor the lives of 4 Hoosiers who were lost tragically in a car accident this week.